Scott, welcome back. It's great to have you back, man. I really appreciate you making time in your schedule. I really appreciate, the last conversation we had, which made me incredibly uncomfortable. But it's good to have you back. I want to pick back up because on the last episode, we talked about work habits and we talked about 3 really basic rules. Would you restate them for me?
Yes, and I'll do it slow this episode. Be on time, pay attention, and work hard. And those three simple things, I want to backtrack a little bit too, is they're really very simple. And there's, again, so many things that manifest themselves off of that give you some of the culture that you want. And very often we go into companies, businesses, organizations, teams, and there's these raps and these words of these great mission statements. And you have to have a mission statement. But what you have to do is when you create those mission statements or those tenets of what your program is about, you have to live them. And that was part of what we were talked about last episode too, is finding people that can do the things that are core elements of your program and what tenants or of your business. And not everyone's going to be perfect on them, but having in place an infrastructure and a culture that's going to develop those things with your employees and then therefore remind yourself. Whereas we talked about learning things last time, sometimes the learning is about reminding yourself of some things and living that. Before Tommy became Tom Brady, um, it was interesting. So we drafted Tommy, and in this sixth round, number 199 overall, he was our fourth quarterback his rookie year, and never didn't see the field, and he was developmental, but he had some of the things that we were looking for. One of the top things being he had an extraordinary work ethic. He had some really good work habits, but then he had to be taught more work habits. But he was one of the most willing um, and also humble people in the sense that he never thought he was good enough. And he kept getting reinforced during much of his life, including in college, where he was never the full time starter at Michigan and then gets drafted by us and becomes the fourth, that he wasn't going to be good enough. And one of the stories about Tommy that still resonates with me to this day is so he goes through his full rookie year, and it's now 2001, and we're preparing for the draft. And it's a late Friday night, couple of weeks before, maybe 2 weeks before the draft. The offseason program is in swing, and players are working out during the day. And at this point in time, we had not moved into the new Gillette Stadium. So we were in Foxborough Stadium. We had this old fashioned bubble, not an indoor facility. Our indoor facility was not a structure. It was one of those bubbles. And it's, I don't know, maybe it's 9:30 at night. It's a Friday night, again, a couple weeks before the draft. And I'm leaving. I get last one. I'm out of the office and I go to drive away and I see the lights are on in the bubble. And I drive around the construction, get over to the bubble, and outside I see this little yellow Jeep, which was Brady's. There's another long story behind that, how someone who helped him get a car deal clowned him by getting him a yellow Jeep. That was the best he could do for him. And I go into the facility it's after 9 o'clock. And as I go into the facility, there's Tommy by himself. And he's got those rubber resistance
Yeah.
bands, and he's got those around his ankles, and he's doing footwork drills and throwing the ball into one of those giant nets that has the little buckets in it, the little holes. He's in there by himself. It's a Friday night. He's got his boombox playing back when boomboxes were a cool thing. And he's doing these footwork drills, throwing the ball by himself. Friday night. Tommy didn't all of a sudden get handsome when he became Tom Brady. He could have had a lot of other things he was maybe out doing on a Friday night, but he's in there by himself. And I walk in and I said, "Hey, how you doing, kid?" And he comes running up, jogs up to me, and he goes, "Hey, what's up, babe?" We do the bro hug thing. And I said, "What are you doing?" He's well, I'm just working on some stuff. And I knew exactly what was up because this is what he had done. He was always the first guy on the field, last guy off the field. And we chatted up a little bit, and I said, now we had gotten him, Charlie Weiss and myself. Charlie got him a spare key to the office because he worked late. I had given him one for the bubble. And we exchange, and I start to walk away, and I say, "Hey, have a good night. Just make sure you lock up, hit the lights." And he goes, "Okay." And I start to walk away, and he goes, "Hey, babe." And I turn around, I go, "What's up?" He goes, "Do me a favor." I said, "Sure." He goes, "Don't tell anyone you saw me here tonight. That tells you everything you need to know." And he meant it. He was embarrassed that he was caught. He knew that he had to do the work. He had this extraordinary work ethic. He was exceedingly competitive. He wanted, by that time, he didn't want to be the greatest ever at that point in time. He just wanted to get in the game. Good people do bad things. Smart people do dumb things. That whole concept we talked about yesterday in the book Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, where he talks about each one of us is so much more than the worst thing that we do. Because we do something horrible or dumb or bad, that doesn't mean that we are necessarily a bad person, right? It's so I may change my comment to using the paradox. See,
Well,
you asked me yesterday what I learned, or last episode what I learned. I just learned something right there.
my our jobs are similar. We just deal with
Gosh,
different
yeah.
types, very similar. Our jobs are very similar, and our roles are very similar. So speaking of which, I'm going to do a hard segue on something that you've talked about that I really like. And I'd like you to play with this statement. Do your job.
Do your job. Okay. So that became part of, one of those part of the mantra of the Patriots and this silly thing they called the Patriot way. It was just our way of doing stuff. But the just do your job, there's a long story behind that. When people hear
Hold on, I have
just
to
do your
stop. I
job,
have to interrupt you now because
go ahead.
what's so fun about that was that you kind of like rolled your eye around the Patriots way, like they put a marketing wrapper around the grit and resilience that you and Belichick had, and they slapped it with a brochure and called it the Patriots way. You guys had a code. You guys had a code. They just put a
But we never
marketing.
called it the Patriot the way. It was we used to say, hey, this is the way we do
It's the way we do it.
stuff. Right. This is the way we
This is
do
how it
stuff.
works. This is how it
And
works here.
right. And it comes back to um the just do your job thing is accepting your role and who you are and what you are and having humility and understanding you're responsible for this, and that's what's going to make us a great team. But that whole thing was born out of again, a lot of people think that that was a Patriot thing or simply a Bill Belichick thing, and this is not to be disrespectful or to steal anyone's thunder. Is you know it was a Patriot thing that was a Belichick thing that was really a Parcells thing, and Parcells stole it from Al Davis, Mr. Davis. So I'm going to give you my little just do your job story. So I'm at the New York Jets, and I'm the pro personnel director, and we had two pretty good years in pro personnel in free agency. So I was feeling myself a little bit, right? I smelled pretty good at that point in time. In my mind, I smelled
I
real
look
good.
good. I
I
look
look good. I
good.
smell good. We're good. And Parcells comes into my office, and in my office, I had this metal wall actually, and I had all these magnets on it. And on my pro board was I had sorted all the free agent players that were getting ready to come up. We're getting ready for free agency. And of course, I had my color coding as we talked about. Unrestricted free agents were one color, restricted free agents were another, street free agents were another, and they all had their tags all had a different reason. Not only the color of the tag, but the border around the tag. So
I
he
so
comes
love
in
it.
and I'm explaining to him kind of what's going on. He says, "This is good. I feel like we're organized." And, he kind of pumped my tires a little bit. And as he's getting ready to walk out of the office, I said, "Hey, Bill, I have a question." I said, "This is my second year being a pro personnel director. Um, as we're preparing for the draft, I think one of my strengths is, how I evaluate offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I haven't been involved in the draft very thoroughly, other than the stuff that I've done on my own. Can I do some work on some of the offensive and defensive linemen getting ready for the draft?" And he looks at me and gives me, and again, I hope some folks are watching on YouTube. Yeah, I'll give that some thought. I'll give that some thought. Um, he says, and I'll let you know." And as he's saying that, "I'll let you know," as he's walking towards my door, and he stops and said, "Hey, by the way, I forgot to ask you a question about that kid from the Detroit Lions, that is the right gunner on the, punt team." He said, "What's that kid's name?" He snapped it. "What's the kid's name?" I said, "The Detroit Lions." He goes, "Yeah, he's a free agent this year." I'm like, I'm not sure, Bill, because we didn't play the Lions this year. I'm sure he's on my board here somewhere, but I didn't know it off the top of my head because we didn't play the Lions that year. I also did all the advanced scouting, so I knew where every single player aligned on the teams that we played.